It's not surprising that once again, as we assemble, the extremists said they were going to change the rule. Last week they met. Tom Tillis, you remember, I think it was in 2011, he declared that was my house. He said, that's my house. And now they have created the rules, limiting the number of protesters to a certain area outside, inviting selective law enforcement, saying that if you talk in a tone that's not normal, that's what Bull Connor and folk like that said about Civil Rights Act. They weren't being normal. That's what people said about women in the women's suffrage movement. They needed to go home and be normal. That's what they say about immigrants who are fighting for fair immigration, that you ought to speak normal, don't be loud. But the book of Micah they're trying to bully, they're trying to intimidate. Would you touch your neighbor and say, but ain't nobody scared? The book of Micah asks this question, what doth the Lord require? Psalm 72 says, of a ruler, may he defend the afflicted among the people, save the children of the needy, and may he crush the tyrant. Our Constitution says we're supposed to govern for the good of the whole. So we have no other choice but to assemble in the people's house where these bills are being presented and argued and voted upon, in hopes that God will move in the hearts of our legislators. You know, one Republican didn't even vote for these rules. We've got to move and believe that there is the possibility for Pharaoh's heart to change. But even if it doesn't, we got to say, let my people go. So some may be asking the question, why don't you be quiet? Why don't you preachers go back to your pulpits and stay inside the wall? Why don't you doctors stay over there with your white coats inside of the hospital? Why don't you workers accept whatever we're giving? Why don't you women go home and behave? That's what they're saying. Why don't you young people do something else? Why don't you elderly people go home? Well, some of us went to good public schools. And we learned how to research history. Some of us read Henry Thoreau when he said, when they asked him why wouldn't he be quiet, Thoreau said, if I'm going to repent of anything, I'm going to repent of my good behavior. And I'm going to ask the question, what possessed me to behave so well in the face of such wrong? I can't go home. Because my Bible says when wrong is in the land, Isaiah 58, it says, cry loud and spare not. Raise your voice like a trumpet. William Faulkner said, never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty and truth and compassion against injustice and lying or greed. If all people all over the world would do this, it would change the earth. Another writer said, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor and never the tormentor. I heard Bob Marley say, get up, stand up for your rights. Leonardo da Vinci said, nothing strengthens authority so much as silence. Desmond Tutu said, if you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you're neutral, then the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Ella Wilcox says to sin by silence when they should protest makes coward of men. Mahatma Gandhi said silence becomes cowardice when occasion demands speaking out the whole truth and acting accordingly. Howard Zinn said protest beyond the law is not a departure from democracy. It's absolutely essential to democracy. James Baldwin said, I love America more than any other country in the world. And it's exactly for this reason that I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. Albert Einstein said, if I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity. And Dr. King says any individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice is in reality expressing highest respect for the law. So let me say on behalf of my Moral Monday family, silence is not an option. Standing down is not an option. Going backwards is not an option. Not now, not ever. We will not be silent. Not now, not ever. Silence is betrayal. We will not betray the poor. We will not betray the poor. We will not betray the sick. We will not betray our teachers. We will not betray the LGBT community. We will not betray women. We will not betray the unfortunate. We will never, 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 never write your rules, but we will never pass your laws, but we will never tell us to go home all you want. But we will never, 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 never stand down, because silence is not an option. I wish you would tell your neighbor, there's an army rising. And we call on every North Carolinian who believes in the common good that this is the time for us to cry loud and spare not. Now is the time. Here is the place. We are the people, and we will be heard. And we will never, 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 never stay silent in the face of injustice. Somebody scream.